in our previous class, we could not discuss about the topic frame of suit in detail as provided in Order 2 of the Civil Procedure Code. So let us discuss about the said topic, that is frame of suit and joinder of cause of action and splitting of claim. Order 2 provides how a suit is to be framed. What it provides? That is, first Order 2 Rule 1 provides frame of suit. What frame of suit? When you are aware that a suit is instituted by presenting a plaint in the court competent to try it. So once a plaint is presented, a suit is instituted. What it says? How a suit is to be framed, that is frame of suit. The provisions regarding framing of suit, regarding inclusion of all cause of action in a suit, those provisions are there in Order 2 of the Civil Procedure Code. As you know, when a suit is filed, in a suit always plaintiff claims relief against the person who is called defendant. So whatever relief a plaintiff is entitled for a particular cause of action, he must claim all the reliefs. He must join all the cause of action in the plaint for which is entitled against the defendant. So that's why Order 2 Rule 1 provides frame of suit. What it says? Every suit shall, as far as practicable, be framed so as to afford grounds for final decision upon the subjects in dispute. So every suit must be framed in such a manner, providing that so that will give grounds for final decision upon the subjects in dispute. Not only that, and also to prevent further litigation concerning them, because there should be an end of litigation. Litigation is not beneficial to anybody. So when a litigation is filed, lot of time of the court is wasted. That hampers peace in the society. So that's why when a litigation comes, in that litigation, all the disputes between the plaintiff and the defendant in respect of a particular cause of action must be adjudicated for all time to come. There cannot be part claim if the plaintiff files a suit against the defendant for a part of the subject matter. Thereafter again he files. Then again he files by part, splitting the claim. So there will be multifarious litigation. There will be multi-litigation and plaintiff and that the defendant will be both face inconvenience. So that's why, keeping this thing in mind, the legislature has made provision in Order 2, Rule 1, that every suit shall, as far as practicable, whatever, all endeavor must be taken, must be made. For that, so as to, while framing a suit, that will include all the cause of action, which will give a ground for final decision of the subject matter of the dispute, and to prevent further litigation concerning the same. So that's why this is the first rule, that every suit shall be framed in such a manner that will afford all ground, that will give all grounds to the court to decide the matter in dispute, and so that once that matter is decided, that will prevent further litigation between the parties. Then what is cause of action? Cause of action doesn't mean the reason for filing a suit. No. Cause of action means all such material facts which the plaintiff is required to prove to get a relief or get reliefs in a suit filed by him. So, the plaintiff will include all the cause of action which exist for which he is entitled to get relief against the defendant or defendants. Now, Rule 2 provides suit to include the whole claim. Suit to include the whole claim. What? Entire claim of the plaintiff must be included in the plaint. That must be brought to the notice of the court in the suit. So that's why every suit shall include the whole of the claim which the plaintiff is entitled to make in respect of the cause of action. In respect of a particular cause of action, whatever claim the plaintiff is entitled to get against the defendant, he must include all such claims in the plaint. But a plaintiff may relinquish any portion of his claim in order to bring the suit within the jurisdiction of any court. As you know, every court has a pecuniary jurisdiction as well as territorial jurisdiction. To bring a suit within the limits of the pecuniary jurisdiction of a court, the plaintiff may relinquish a part of the claim. For an example, the plaintiff is entitled to realize that 60,000 rupees from the defendant. But he intends to file that suit in the Court of Civil Justice Junior Division, which has pecuniary jurisdiction up to rupees 50,000. So there he may file a suit for realization of 50,000, relinquishing his part of the claim of Rs 10,000. So that's why in order to bring to the jurisdiction of a particular court, the plaintiff is given liberty as per the provisions of Order 2, Rule 2, that he may relinquish any part of the claim so as to bring his suit within the jurisdiction of the court. So here, this is Order 2, Rule 2. Now, Rule 3 provides omission to sue for one of several reliefs. This is very important provision. It is as good as the res judicata. As you know, once a matter has been adjudicated by a competent court, the same matter cannot be again agitated in another suit. That bars the suit. Similarly, if a plaintiff under the principle of constructive res judicata, whatever matters the parties would have taken as a ground of attack or defense, if they have not taken, then it is deemed that those matters have been adjudicated. And that will be treated, that will operate as constructive res judicata. Even if no decision has been given, then it will be treated as a decision has been given in favor of a person who has got the relief. So this it is again like a constructive res judicata. What is that? Omission to sue for one of several reliefs. Suppose the plaintiff is entitled to get more than one relief, but he either intentionally or unintentionally omitted to include the whole of the relief as excluded one of the relief. Then subsequently he cannot file a suit against the same defendant for the relief which he has omitted to claim in the first suit. What this provision says? A person entitled to more than one relief in respect of the same cause of action may sue for all or any of such relief, but if the omits, except with the leave of the court, to sue for all such relief, he shall not afterwards sue for any relief so omitted. That means, if a person is entitled for more than one relief out of the same cause of action, he must include all the reliefs. He must claim for all the reliefs in his plaint. But if he has omitted to claim any of the relief, and without permission of the court. With the permission of the court, if he has omitted, okay, for that he can file a suit. But if he has omitted to claim any of the relief without the permission of the court and has not taken permission of the court, then subsequently he cannot file a suit for that relief. For an example, in a suit for specific performance of a contract of sale, the plaintiff is also entitled to get the compensation. But if the plaintiff has omitted to claim compensation without the leave of the court, then if he failed in the past suit to get a decree for specific performance of contract of sale, subsequently he cannot file a suit for the same cause of action for realization of the compensation for the breach of contract. So this is order to Rule 3. What? A person entitled to more than one relief in respect of the same cause of action. If a person is entitled to get more than one relief in respect of same cause of action, so may sue for all or any such relief. Either that option is available, he may sue for all the reliefs or for any of the relief. But if he omits, except with the leave of the court, to sue for all such relief, if he omits to claim all the reliefs, then such of the reliefs for which there is omission in the plaint, for that he cannot file a suit for the second time unless he had taken permission of the court and excluded a particular relief from his claim. For an example, X is entitled to get area rent in respect to a particular house for 3 months. But he did not file the suit claiming the entire area rate of all the 3 months, but filed a suit for getting area rent of 2 months, living rent of the one of the month. But if he has not taken permission and if he wins the case also, then again he cannot file a suit to claim the rent of the month for which he had not claimed. So the illustration will also make you clear. Explanation provided to the rule says, for the purpose of this rule, an obligation and a collateral security for the performance and successive claim arising under the same obligation shall be deemed respectively to constitute but one cause of action. What is cause of action? That means the facts which the plaintiff is required to prove in a suit to get relief. So for the purpose of this one cause of action, any relief, any obligation and collateral security. What is obligation? A duty enforced by law is an obligation. Suppose somebody has borrowed money and he has mortgaged the land as a collateral security. Or so in such case, this is liable to pay the money and also the mortgage for realization of the money from that mortgage property, all are to be treated as a part of the same cause of action, constitute but one cause of action. So what it says, for the purpose of this rule, an obligation and a collateral security for its performance. To perform an obligation, if some mortgage is there or if some promissory note is there, etc., and successive claims arising under the same obligation. So successive claim, if from the same obligation some interest or some other claim is to be made, shall be deemed respectively to constitute but one cause of action. All those cause of action will be joined together and will be treated as one cause of action. Illustration will make you clear how the omission of a plaintiff to claim one of the reliefs precludes him to bring another suit for that relief. Let's say house to be at a yearly rate of 1200. The rent for the whole of the years, that is 905, 1906, 1907 is due and unpaid. A suit be in 1908 only for the rent of 1906 and A shall not afterwards you be for the rent due from 906 or 907. That is what? For 3 years rent, A was entitled to realize from the defendant. But he omitted to claim rent for 2 years, but claimed rent of the last year. But here, in such case, he will be precluded to claim that rent. This is as per the provisions of Order 2, Rule 3. What it says? Omission tissue for one of several reliefs. Because in the instant example as given in the illustration, A was entitled to get area rent of his house for the year 1905, 1906 and 1907. But instead of claiming the area rent of all these 3 years, he filed the suit claiming rent only for the year 1907. So as he omitted to include those reliefs and permission of the court had not been taken by the plaintiff, in such case he is precluded to file a second suit for the area rent in respect of the year 1905 and 1906. Then this Rule 3 says, joinder of cause of action. Previously we had discussed joinder of parties. You must not be confused with joinder of cause of action and joinder of parties. Though parties, misjoinder of parties, non-joinder of parties, we have discussed as per the provisions of Order 1. But here in Order 2, there is joinder of cause of action. What it says? Save as otherwise provided, a plaintiff may unite in the same suit several causes of action against the same defendant or the same defendants jointly, and any plaintiffs having cause of action in which they are jointly interested against the same defendant or the same defendants jointly may unite such causes of action in the same suit. What it says? So what the plaintiff is entitled. So what is, if the plaintiff will join his all cause of action in the same suit, what is available, what cause of action exists against a particular defendant or against more than one defendants, or suppose two brothers, they are entitled to get a relief, get a particular recovered possession of a piece of land from other two brothers. So in such case, the plaintiffs will join, they are all, the cause of action of both the brothers will be joined in that suit, and the cause of action which exists against one or more defendants, those cause of action will be will be included in the same suit. So you must not be confused what is joinder of parties and joinder of cause of action. Joinder of cause of action means the facts or the entitlement of a party to get a relief. On what grounds a person is entitled to get a relief? Another person is entitled to get a relief. If the grounds of both the parties are same, those cause of action will be joined together. So that is called joinder of cause of action. So, save as otherwise provided, a plaintiff may unite in the same suit several cause of action against the same defendant or the same defendant jointly. For an example, X and Y, X had borrowed some money from a bank. Y was the guarantor. So, both X made default in payment of that loan. So, in such case, the bank has cause of action both against the principal borrower and against the surety. So, he may join the cause of action in against both the defendants in the same suit. So, that is the plaintiff for which a cause of action, for the cause of action in respect of which either if more than one plaintiffs are entitled to get relief, those cause of actions are to be joined together. So where cause of action are united, the jurisdiction of the court as regards the suit shall depend on the amount or value of the aggregated subject matter at the date of institution of the suit. When cause of actions are united, but the value of the suit must be within the jurisdiction of the particular court. So now, Order 2 Rule 4 provides only certain claims to be joined for recovery of immovable property. When a suit is filed for recovery of possession immovable property, only certain cause of action will be joined. That means the plaintiff may join some cause of action in respect of a recovery in a suit for recovery of immovable property, recovery possession of immovable property. What it says? No cause of action shall, unless with the leave of the court, unless there is permission of the court, no cause of action shall be joined within a suit for recovery of immovable property, except, but these cause of actions may be joined in a suit for recovery of possession. What is that? That is mean profit. What is mean profit? Mean profit has been mentioned that any profit derived by a person due to unauthorized possession of the land of another, including interest thereon. So here, when a suit has been filed for recovery of possession of immovable property, in that suit, the cause of action for realization of mean profit or rent in respect of that property may be joined. Similarly, claims for damages for breach of any contract under which the property or any part thereof is held, if any compensation is claimed in respect of breach of contract in respect of immovable property, then that cause of action may be included in the suit. That will be joined in a suit for recovery of immovable property. Now, similarly, claim in which the relief sought is based on the same cause of action. So here, the claim in which the relief sought is based on the same cause of action. Under the same cause of action, whatever relief is claimed in respect of that immovable property, those are to be included, those are to be joined. Provided that nothing in this rule shall be deemed to prevent any party in a suit for foreclosure or redemption from asking to put into possession of the mortgage property. When that is also, when a mortgage is always in respect of immovable property, in a suit for redemption, in suit for foreclosure, a claim may be made for putting the plaintiff in possession of that immovable property. So here, that is, if when a suit is filed for recovery of possession immovable property, some cause of action may be joined, some other cause of action may be included in that relief. What are those cause of actions? That is claim of rent, claim of mean profit, then any compensation in respect of a breach of contract in respect of immovable property, then other claim in which the relief sought is based on the same cause of action. Any other relief that has link with the recovery of possession of the property, those relief can be claimed, those relief can be included in a suit for recovery of possession of immovable property. Provided that nothing in this section will affect the provisions regarding getting a possession of immovable property in a suit for redemption or foreclosure. Now, Rule 5 says, claims by or against an executor, administrator or heir. Who is an executor? Executor is appointed in a will to execute the will, to carry out the intention of the testator who had made that will after his death. So, an executor, similarly administrator of a property or heir. No claim by or against an executor, administrator or heir. Heir means if a person dies, who is his successor, who is legal heir. No claim against executor, administrator or heir as such shall be joined with claim by or against him personally. So, any personal claim against the executor, administrator or heir will not be included in a suit which has been filed against that, or which is filed, or which has been filed against the executor, administrator or heir in his representative capacity. No claim by or against an executor, administrator or heir as such shall be joined with claims by or against him personally unless the last mentioned claim are alleged to arise with reference to the estate in respect of which the plaintiff or defendant sues or is sued as executor, administrator or heir, or are such as he was entitled to or liable for jointly with the deceased person whom he represents. So, that means the executor represents the deceased, administrator represents the deceased, heir of a person sometimes represents the deceased. When a suit is filed by them on behalf of the deceased, on representing the estate of the deceased, in such suit, no personal claim of that executor, administrator, or heir will be included, either as plaintiff or defendant. But if that executor, administrator, or heir was jointly liable for certain money or for certain property along with the deceased, in such case that personal claim may be included. Then power of court to order separate trial. If we will go to the provisions in order 1, there the court has a power to direct for split up of the parties, for separate trial when there is misjoinder of the parties, which will cause embarrassment, which will cause delay in trial. So, in such case, the court may direct for separate trial. Similarly, the provision in the order 2 that when cause of action has been wrongly included, there is misjoinder of cause of action. That means wrong cause of action were misjoined. So, in such case, the court may direct for separate trial. Where it appears to the court that the joinder of cause of action in one suit may embarrass or delay the trial. Similar provisions is there in order 1. Embarrass or delay the trial. If the joinder of parties, it appears to the court that the joinder of parties will delay or cause embarrassment the trial, or is otherwise inconvenient, the court may order for separate trial. Similar provision is there, that is in order 2 rule 6, where it should be read along with the provisions, what? This order 1 rule 3a. If you go through the provisions in order 1 rule 3a, what it provides? Power to order separate trial where joinder of defendants may embrace as delay trial. Similarly, in such case, the court may direct for separate trial. So, that is the misjoinder of cause of action. There is a provision in order 2 rule 6 which authorizes the court, that court may direct for separate trial when the joinder of cause of action in one suit will cause delay or cause embarrassment or cause inconvenience in trial. What it provides? Where it appears to the court that the joinder of cause of action in one suit may embarrass or delay the trial or is otherwise inconvenient. Joinder of cause of action will cause inconvenience to the parties. The court may order separate trials or make such other order as may be expedient in the interest of justice. Now, similar is the provision there in order 1. All objections on the grounds of misjoinder of cause of action shall be taken at the earliest possible opportunity, like that in order 1 rule 13, objection as to non-joinder or misjoinder parties. So all objection on the ground of non-joinder or misjoinder parties shall be taken at the earliest possible opportunity, and in all cases at the time when issues are framed, before framing of the issues or at the time of framing of the issues. That is regarding non-joinder or misjoinder parties. But the similar provision is there in order 2 rule 7. What it says? Objection on the ground of misjoinder of cause of action. Misjoinder, all objection on the ground of misjoinder of cause of action shall be taken at the earliest possible opportunity, and in all cases where issues are settled at or before such settlement, unless the grounds of objection has subsequently arisen. If the grounds of objection has subsequently arisen, then that can be taken even after settlement of the issues. And any such objection not so taken, if such an objection has not been taken in the earliest opportunity, then shall be deemed to have been waived. It is to be deemed that it has been waived. So these are the provisions regarding frame of suit. The frame of suit what provides how cause of actions are to be joined together. When one or more plaintiffs are entitled to get a relief on the same cause of action, if separate suit will be filed against the defendant, then the common question of cause of action, common cause of action will arise. In such case, both the plaintiffs may unite their cause of action and file a suit. So these are the provisions regarding frame of suit in order 2 of the Civil Procedure Code. Thank you.